Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your um, Monday lecture. Okay, so there are a few questions online. People asking what's happening. So because we do have a class on Thursday that overlaps with the class on Monday, I did not create a new slot for the Monday class. We're just continuing with the Thursday slot, but it is a Monday timetable, and we are only going to be here for 45 minutes. The other question is there no change for Friday? No, the only change we have is this Thursday. So ideally, the varsity figured there's going to be a lot of Mondays that are going to be lost throughout with all of the public holidays and all of that, but we have all our Thursdays. So we sacrificed one Thursday for a Monday to make sure that we have an even distribution of all of those. This happens once a semester. It's going to happen next semester as well. So just keep an eye out for that. Okay, the reason I'm standing behind this podium is I'm trying to see both screens without showing you my back because yesterday you guys were confused, like like a lot. So what we then decided to do is instead of continuing with the course content, something happened. Uh, Instead of continuing with the course content, we're just going to maybe try and show you the concepts that we covered yesterday from a practical point of view. So this is what I came up with. Okay, so here's the form. Eventually, the form will pop up or not. Let's try run it and see if the form will appear then. So basically, this is a practical example of it's running somewhere. Okay, there we go. So practical example of the slides we went through yesterday. So most of the code, if not all, is going to come from those slides. So the first thing you can see is if I go to my form, let me just hide these so we can see more of the code. Okay, so got a lot of stuff going on here. So here's my place text subroutine. Okay, I'm guessing at this point we're all comfortable with the place text subroutine, the idea behind it and the job that it does. So I call it PT. PT stands for place text. You can name it whatever you want to name it once again. I'm passing R by value, I'm passing C by value, I'm passing T by value, and then I'm going to tell it which row, which column, which text. Okay, so when I start using it, here is the form load. So the first time I use it is in my form load. I have got my my place text subroutine. I say 0 and 0, and then example. But again, because a subroutine does not return anything, I'm not putting anything before it. There is no the subroutine equals something because it doesn't return anything. So as I ran it, because this code is in my form load, it is essentially going to run when I run it the first time. So that example that you see popping up over there is due to this code running in line 35. Everyone comfortable with that? Okay, so let's have a look at what actually happens. This little red line over here is called a breakpoint. What do you think it does? Online people, breakpoint, what do you think a breakpoint does? Yeah. It what? Which step the program is on. Okay. Online says it runs the program until the dot. Well, not really. Doesn't run the code of that past that line. No, but I do appreciate that you guys are trying. Stops the program once it reaches that point. Okay, yes, kind of, not really. and then someone who's writing in capital letters saying it goes through the code set by step. Okay, so basically a breakpoint is a point that breaks your code. It's going to stop at that point and allow you to kind of interrogate the code as it's running. So kind of like those of you that are into cars or cooking, maybe kind of like when your car is running and you open up the hood to try and see what's happening while it's running, as opposed to just running it with the hood closed. With cooking, it's kind of like opening the oven while the cooking process or the baking process is happening to see what is happening at every point, at every step in the process. So if I click on subroutines, subroutines is BT and sub, by the way, line 40. So if I click on subroutines, my code immediately stops. Can anyone tell me why it immediately stopped? Because my breakpoint is exactly at line 40, at the beginning of that page. I mean, at the beginning of that, that's where it stops. There's a few things you can do with a breakpoint. For instance, if you go outputs, no, that's the wrong big window. Is it? No. Breakpoint. No, this just shows how many breakpoints I have. Stack exceptions. I think I've closed it already, what I'm looking for. Oh, it's locals. So if you go to locals, it kind of tells you what is happening on here. Basically, I don't have any variables there, so there is no variable. But basically, you can, if you have something like a while loop, you can see what value is counter, what value is this, what value is that. So if let me just minimize it again. So on top here, you have a couple controls for the breakpoint. So you can tell it to step into the next step or expand the step that it's going to next and. So the one that we're going to be doing is step into. How do we open those tabs? They're at the bottom there. And I thought I closed them, but I didn't. So here they are. I've got stack block, breakpoints, all of these. If you can't see them, simply just go to view, and they're all here. Error lists, outputs. But obviously some of them, like locals, won't appear if you're not running your program. So my program is still running in the background. So I haven't stopped it, it's still running. So if I click step into, what do you think is going to happen? Anyone? What do you think is going to happen? What is the next line of code that we're going to go to? Any ideas? Line 41, yes, that would be, numerically speaking, we will go from line 40 to 41. The one after the breakpoint, which is 41. So a lot of people online are saying, once I run 40, the next line is 41. How many agree? How many don't agree? One. So let's see what happens. If I press step into, we move from line 40 to line 10. You understand what happened there? Okay, who's confused? Okay, so let's go back to line 40. What are we saying in line 40? What is the code for line 40? I guess I can see both screens fine. What are we saying in line 40? We're calling the subroutine. Okay, where is our subroutine? It's in line 10. So the moment we call it, the code goes and looks for that information. So that's why we move over to line 10. If we step, come on, step. And then it's going to run row. Again, okay, if I have locals over here, you'll see, if I open my locals, why are they so big? If I open my locals, let me just drag them down a little bit. You'll notice that if I open my locals, we've got R as 0, because we passed it as 0. We've got C over here as 1. Okay, I guess I do need to stand here. We got C as 1, and we've got T as sub, right? That's because if we scroll down again to the first time we run it, we're saying we want 0, 1 sub. So basically over here, if you hover over row as well and click on it, come on. If I hover over R, you can see it says R is 0, C is 1, and the text is sub. So that's basically what it's going to do. It's going to go to row 0, column 1, place the text sub into that place, end sub. Now we go back to line 40. So all of that stuff happened in line 40. The idea behind subroutines is so that, once again, repetition of code. So we don't have to repeat the same 3 lines of code over and over and over again. So each time the subroutine is called, it is going to jump up to where that subroutine is, reuse those same lines of code, and then come back. Okay, so it's come back. If I step into, now we're getting our input box. Input box pops up and says, how many do you want? I want 3. And then now we've got num rows is going to be 3 plus 1, which is 4. And then again, I am calling place text, right? At line 30, at line 43. What's the next line of code? Where are we going to go from 43? 10, right? So if we do that, back to 10. Row, our row R is 3, C is 0, text is 3. Okay, so once again, it's going to do that, all the work that we wanted to do, and then eventually we're going to go back to end sub. Once we get to end sub, there is the result of what we just did. So I said we've got 0 and 1 sub. There is sub over here. And then I said I wanted 3 of them. It gave me 3 of them, and it put the 3 at the bottom there. As I'm saying, PT should say num rows 0, and it should display the number of rows. Are there any questions with the code in front of you? Yes. Sorry?
Can you explain the part where it jumps back from the sequence of how it jumps back and jumps back down?
So it jumps whenever it sees PT. PT is a subroutine. So it knows that there is code somewhere that resembles PT. It scans the whole page to look for where PT is. It jumps to where PT is and runs that code.
So it goes back to the subroutine start. So you basically have PT written out in the code, right? And then every time the system finds that PT jumps back to the subroutine.
And does all of the subroutine code. Once it gets to end sub, it jumps back to the line that called the subroutine.
And then, for example, the line that was the line that called the subroutine was in the for loop, it would continuously do that.
It would jump to in the for loop. At that point, it would jump to the subroutine, do what the subroutine asks, jumps back, go to the end, maybe but as long as it sees that subroutine name and that subroutine exists, it will go and find where that subroutine is in the code and execute the code that's under that subroutine. Yes. Quite simple. So let me stop it. So just click on whichever line you want. So this is where the number line is. There's a little grayed out area on the side. Sure you've noticed that. So you can just simply go to that and click on it. It will create a breakpoint. Please do make sure you don't put any breakpoints in your final submission. So if you're submitting a practical or an exam with breakpoints, you're going to lose marks for that. So breakpoints are debug mechanisms. It's for you to kind of see what your code is doing. Once you've figured it out, you have to remove that breakpoint. Yes? How's by value working? We'll get to by value, but by value basically just makes a copy. So I removed my breakpoint. Let me run this again. So again, ladies and gentlemen, most of this code is from yesterday's slides. So you don't have to worry about not having access to it. You do have access to it. What's taking so long? Okay, I removed my breakpoint. Because I removed my breakpoint, my code is no longer going to stop at that line. So if I say sub 4, for instance, it's going to give me 4 and write 4 there. Okay, So if we go down, let's look at by value, what the question that the gentleman had. So when we're using by value, this is a button, right? You can all see that it's a button. I have a local variable called A and a local variable called B. So whenever you want to create a local variable, you don't use private and variable name. You just say dim whatever the variable is as whatever type you want it to be. So in this case, I'm doing a lot of things in one line. Please don't do this. This is not great coded. So you should declare the variable in one line and then set the value in another. So ideally, if I stop it, ideally this is what you should do. Good. That way, that one line is not doing two things. It's assigning, creating the variable, and then there's assignment after. So whenever you want to create a local variable, it's dim, and then the variable as integer or as whatever type you want it to be. The sad part about local variables is they only exist between this private sub and this end sub. Once you are outside of there, they no longer exist, which is why they're called local variables. They're only local to that button or that subroutine they're created in. Once you exit that button or that subroutine, you no longer have access to it. It no longer exists. Does that make sense? To everyone? Okay, cool. So here is, and I'm calling a subroutine called by val demo. I'm passing it A and I'm passing it B. And then there's a message box that says this is the value of. So let's go and find by val demo. Demo. By val demo. All I'm doing in this subroutine is I'm passing X by value, I'm passing Y by value, and I'm saying X is equal to Y. But I'm passing them by value. So let's scroll down to where I'm actually calling that subroutine. It's not scrolling anymore. Okay, there we go. So we've got A as 10, B as 20. What is going to be the value of A? What is going to be the value of B after running them through the subroutine? So what's the value of A? 10. What's the value of B? 20. Okay. Why is A equal to 10? So this is the part of the lecture where you raise your hand and I say, what's the answer? Then you give me the answer. Okay, we've got an answer online. The student says it is 10 because it's a copy. So whatever happens to the copy does not happen to the original. Remember, if we scroll back up to our function or to our subroutine, you'll see that we're effectively changing the value of X. We are saying the value of X should be equal to the value of Y, right? But in this case, give me a second. If I click on by value, it says the value of A is 10, the value of B is 20. That's because the X that we changed here to 20 is a copy, right? The moment we got to end sub, that copy ceased to exist. You seem very confused. Do we all get that? Everyone understands what I'm trying to say here? Okay. Where does the copy go? Nowhere. It goes to the land of no return. It just ceases to exist. Just like your local variables, the moment you end the execution of that button, that local variable no longer exists. Oh, with local variables as well, before I forget, when you're creating local variables, such as the ones that I have here, dim A as integer, there is a new option statement that you need to now include in your practicals. And that is, don't worry, this is the last option statement. That is option infer off. So you need to set option strict on, you need to set option explicit on, but you need to set option infer off. So the point of option infer is it allows you to use local variables without declaring them. We don't want that to happen. We want to declare everything. So we set that to off so that we can declare our local variable. So the three option statements you need to have are option strict on, option explicit on, option infer off. Okay, so let's look at the by ref example. If I click on by ref, I still have A is equal to, let me go to button by ref. So by ref, I still have A is equal to 10, B is equal to 20. I'm running them through that by ref subroutine, and now my A is 20 and my B is 20. Do we all understand why A and B are both 20? Is there anyone in attendance who does not? Okay, cool. I guess that then we're done with that. And then now we get to functions. So the fundamental difference between a function and a subroutine is that a function returns something, right? So even when you are declaring your function, if I scroll up to where my function is declared, so here are where my functions are. So the first function I have is called demo. So demo passes A by value, B by value. Oh, also with the by ref and by value. Remember from yesterday we said we always pass arrays by reference. Anyone remember why we do that? Why do we pass arrays by reference? It takes up a lot of memory to make a copy of that array. So right now you guys are not dealing with very heavy arrays. I think the heaviest you deal with is like 10 or 100 pieces of information. You can get an array that has millions and millions of entries inside of it, and making a copy of that is really not worth it. So just send it as it is, send it by reference, avoid making that copy. Okay, back to functions. We are now at line 26. Creating the functions by val A, by val B as integer. So what that means is if I call the function name, demo is equal to A plus B, what is going to be done is it is going to return the sum of A plus B. Okay, so let's run it and see. Before I run it, let's go back. Let's go to the, before I run it, let's go to the place where I'm actually calling demo. Down there, here it's the function where I'm calling demo. And there we go. If I say function, click on that. It says example of a function where I'm using the name to return. And it says the answer is 30. So that's why I've got 10 plus 20. The answer is 30. So ans has been given the value of A plus B, which is 10 plus 20. Simple enough? Okay. And if I click on OK, it calls also answer. So we've got another one that's also demo. So let's look at where also demo is. Scroll up. Here's also demo. So it returns A times B. So there's two ways to return a function. So the first way you can return a function is just calling the function name and saying the function in name equals whatever it is you want to return. Alternatively, you can just say return whatever it is you want to return. So assuming that there's code that's going to be done to calculate something, and after you're done, you want to return it, you can either call the name of the function as a return call, or you can use the keyword return to return. Both of them work just fine. So over here, A times B, so that would be 10 times 20, that gives us 200. Okay, so the idea behind these things is, let's say I'm writing a program that needs to multiply things a lot. Do you want to multiply every single time? Do you want to have to do that multiplication every single time? No. So that's why we create a function so that each time we want to multiply, it will do it for us. We're not really concerned with what it's doing. What we know is it's doing the right thing. How it's doing it may not be our concern, but we know you can kind of think of them as black boxes, where you know, like a calculator. Do you know how your calculator is calculating stuff? No, you don't. The more important question is, do you care how your calculator is calculating stuff? No, you don't, right? What you know is I give it this. I give it a number and I say plus another number. What I'm expecting out of it is the sum, right? How it does all of that is none of your concern. You're not bothered by that. Even if you're doing complicated stuff like trig or I don't know, linear algebra or whatever, the stuff that you're putting into the calculator, you may know how it works, but you're not really concerned as to how the calculator is doing it. Same thing with functions. All I know is my also demo function multiplies two numbers together. I need to know, I need to give it two numbers, it'll spew out one number. Actually, it shouldn't be an integer, but it's fine, right? Do you get the gist of why we have these things? Okay, again, imagine if multiplying two numbers took 10 lines of code. Would you want to write out those 10 lines of code each and every time you want to multiply something? No. So wouldn't it be better to have a piece of code where you say, each time I want to multiply, I'll call this guy to multiply for me, because I can't be bothered to do it myself. Same principle over here. Cool. Are there any questions with what we have done today? None. Okay, so I am about to rock your world. So over here, I have a button. What is that? What's the caption of that button? Can we have a subroutine that returns something? You were too quick to answer that question. Let me ask it again and think about it. Can we have a subroutine that returns something? You changed your tune too quickly from my. Okay, how? Those of you that said yes, how? Yes. You could. That's not returning things. That's just popping the information to the user. Let's see. I doubt it. So let me create a new subroutine, right? I'm going to call it hope, because that's what we're doing here. And let's say val x as integer, val y as integer. Okay, some of you may be thinking every subroutine needs to have a x and a y. No, that's just coincidental that all of them take into parameters. And in here, that shouldn't be a full stop. And in here, I say return x plus y. Okay, I was a bit shocked because Visual Studio's almost accepted it. It doesn't like that. It doesn't like that. Return is a keyword reserved for a function. Okay, there's a total different conversation happening in this online. Oh, I get it. It doesn't like return. Any other suggestions? Think about what you know. So we can't return, and we can't make it a function. So the question specifies, if you looked at last year's, 2018 or 19 semester test, I think there was a question that like this. So there is a way, definitely. And the weirdest thing is you guys know how. So if I say as integer, it's not a subroutine. So the as integer won't work. You notice how the one above it is a subroutine? It doesn't have as integer, right? It's a sub. Notice how the one at the bottom of it is a function that has as integer. So what's the point of that as integer at the end then? To symbolize that whatever outcome we're going to get from this calculation is going to be an integer. And that's because we're expecting something back. And the only way to expect something back is if what you have defined as a function. So the only thing that uses as integer, the only thing that you can call its name and it will return something, or you can say return, is a function. A subroutine has no business returning anything. But with that said, let's create a subroutine that returns something. Yes. Subroutine. Question says subroutine that returns something. Yes. Data conversion. Okay, what are we converting to what? So right now, here's what we're trying to do in our hopeful situation. We're trying to return x plus y. Trying to add two numbers together and return the answer. Sorry? Okay, where do you want me to create this new variable? Where? No, I can declare a local variable. Do you want it inside the subroutine? Okay, so dim z as integer. Oh, goddamn. And we can have z is equal to x plus y. That kind of works, but remember, z exists between the lines 25 and 28. So the moment we get to the end of 28, z no longer exists. Not really. It would work for the purposes of this. But what have you noticed about all of the subroutines and functions we have so far? No, besides that, they are universal. It doesn't work for one specific instance. But if I put z as a global variable, this subroutine would only work for z. I wouldn't be able to take it and put something else in it because it only caters for z. So what we try to do with all of them, you'll notice, we try to make them universal to get to a point where I could take it out of this program and put it in another program, it should still work. Right? The same thing with the display one. If I had said row is 0, it's not universal anymore because it works for a certain set of rules and not for another. So we need to make this universal. But I like how you're thinking. You've gotten the class quite far. Yes.
Okay, so what if we change the bylaw for x into 5 there?
Okay.
And then we say x equals x plus y.
So the moment you say x equals x, so you're on the right track, but no, it would not necessarily work. So what do we need in this case? So your understanding is on the right track. So what we need is both of you actually just missing it by quite a bit. What you need is I ref z as integer. And then we no longer have to make z a local variable. Good, save. So in this case, if I want to call it, I do have a button over here. I can say dim a as integer equal to 10, dim b as integer equal to 20, and dim c as integer. Then I can say Hope is A, B, C. Then does this make sense? Have we managed to return something? So if we look at our function again, let me just drag it and put it at the bottom so that everything can be next to each other. So over here, within hope, we're passing y, x by value. We're going to make a copy of x. We're making a copy of y. But we are sending z. Right? We all agree we're not making a copy of z. We are sending the original z. Right? So if it says z is equal to x plus y, what's going to be the value of z? 30. Right? When we get to end sub, is that 30 going to persist? Is it going to persist outside of the subroutine? Who says no? Show of hands. Who says yes? Okay, let's see what it does. So there's a question that says, can I describe the process of by reference? So by reference is sending the original. If you want to think about it like that, it doesn't redirect to anything. It doesn't make a copy. It sends through the original. The computer is very slow for some reason today. I do apologize for that. Let's see. It's 30. Okay, but if we had to do, if we had to send Z by value, then that 30 will not persist outside of that subroutine. Therefore, it's as good as not returning anything. So question, if I ask you to create a subroutine that returns something, will you be able to do that? Do you know how to do that? Okay, that's basically, that question was for us to see if you guys understand the differences between by val and by ref, and you understand how to use them. So if I said, now it says 0, because we sent a copy of Z, and when we got to line 84, that copy ceased to exist, so we only have the original C, which is 0. Questions? Do we understand functions and subroutines a little bit better or not? Has this managed to confuse you more or shed some light? Okay, I'm glad. Please do remember your semester test is next week, Wednesday. We will upload all of the necessary information as to time. Time is during class. The venue and other stuff will be uploaded to Eve on Monday. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. How do we know whether to have X and Y as parameters or A, B, and C? Depends on the question. So right now we had no specific question, so we're just doing what we wanted to do.